Marcus Reed stopped walking. The question came softly from beside him, almost swallowed by the rain. His daughter Naya stood beneath the narrow awning outside the side entrance of the Crown Harbor Hotel. Her yellow raincoat was too thin for the cold wind. The little purple backpack on her shoulders was shifted to one side, and her stuffed rabbit was clutched to her chest. The glass doors framed the warm, golden light of the hotel lobby. People in elegant dresses moved past polished marble floors. A pianist played somewhere near the lounge. Waiters carried trays of sparkling drinks toward the private charity event upstairs. It looked like a place where everyone was welcome, but Nia had just been told she could not use the restroom, and now she was standing in the rain trying not to cry. Marcus looked down at her and took off his jacket. He wrapped it around her shoulders, even though it was damp. "She didn't say that exactly," he said gently. Nia looked up at him, but she made it sound like it. Marcus stared through the glass at the front desk. The woman behind it was still there. Liana Vale, assistant manager, perfect hair, perfect blazer, perfect smile for the guests who looked important enough to receive one. Marcus had seen that kind of smile before, the kind that disappeared the moment someone decided you were not worth impressing. He knelt in front of Nia and brushed a loose curl away from her forehead. "Listen to me," he said. "You belong anywhere you walk into with respect. Do you understand?" Nia nodded, but her eyes were still wet. "Then why didn't she let me use the bathroom?" Marcus paused. He could have told her the truth. He could have said, "Because some people judge others before they know them." He could have said, "Because she looked at your daddy and decided who he was without asking." He could have said, "Because some people only know how to be kind when they think they might gain something from it." But Nia was 8 years old. She had already lost her mother. She had already learned that life could change in one phone call, one hospital visit, one quiet night when adults tried to speak softly behind a closed bedroom door. Marcus did not want her to carry the weight of the world too early, so he simply held her hand. "Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices," he said, "and when they do, it has nothing to do with you." Nia looked down at the puddle near her shoes. "Can we go home now?" Marcus looked at his phone. There were 3 missed calls from Priya Shah, his chief operating officer. His meeting was supposed to begin in 15 minutes. The meeting was important. Investors were coming. A new expansion deal was waiting to be signed. But Marcus looked at Nia again, and for a few seconds, none of that mattered. "Not yet," he said softly. "First, we're going to find you a bathroom, then we're getting hot chocolate. And after that, we'll decide." Nia's face softened a little. "With whipped cream?" "With extra whipped cream." She gave him a small smile. That smile was enough to make Marcus stand. He turned toward the glass doors again. This time, he was not walking back in as a tired father asking for help. He was walking back in as the owner of the Crown Harbor Hotel, but before he did, he remembered the first time he had ever walked into a hotel and felt like he did not belong. It had been 21 years earlier. Marcus was 19 then. He had no money, no connections, and no idea that one day people would call him successful. Back then, he had a job washing dishes in the kitchen of a small roadside hotel just outside the city. He worked nights. His hands were always dry from soap and hot water. His shoes always smelled like grease. He had learned to sleep on buses because it was cheaper than taking taxis home after late shifts. At the time, Marcus's mother was sick. His younger brother needed school fees, and Marcus was doing everything he could to keep the lights on in their small apartment. One night, after a wedding reception at the hotel, a guest walked into the kitchen by mistake. The man was drunk, angry, and dressed in an expensive suit. He looked at Marcus, who was carrying a tray of dirty plates, and snapped his fingers. "Hey, you, get me some coffee." Marcus politely told him that the kitchen was closed. The man laughed. "You people always have an excuse." Marcus did not know what "you people" meant to him at the time. He knew only that he felt small. He knew his supervisor was nearby and said nothing. He knew he was too tired to argue. Then an older woman named Mrs. Carter stepped between them. Mrs. Carter was the hotel manager. She was strict, always on time, always carrying a notebook, and she had a way of looking at people that made them sit up straighter. She told the guest, "He is not your servant. He is an employee. Speak to him with respect or leave my hotel." The guest laughed at her too. Then Mrs. Carter did something Marcus never forgot. She called security, not on Marcus, on the guest. Later that night, she found Marcus sitting alone in the staff room. She placed a plate of food in front of him and said, "A building can be beautiful and still be ugly inside if the people running it forget that everyone has dignity." Marcus had never heard anyone say something like that. He remembered looking at her and asking, "What if people don't care?" Mrs. Carter smiled sadly. "Then you become the kind of person who does." That sentence stayed with Marcus for the rest of his life. It stayed with him when he worked 2 jobs. It stayed with him when he started his first small cleaning company. It remained with him when he purchased his first motel with money borrowed from 3 people who had little enough themselves. And it stayed with him when he purchased the Crown Harbor Hotel 11 years later. Marcus had built Reed Harbor Hospitality from almost nothing. He owned hotels in 5 cities now. People saw the expensive suits he wore at business events. They saw the articles written about him. They saw the company headquarters, the polished office, the drivers, the meetings, the awards. But Nia saw something different. She saw the man who made pancakes on Saturdays. She saw the father who sang the wrong words to old songs while washing dishes. She saw the man who still kept a faded photograph of her mother, Elena, in his wallet. And that rainy afternoon, she saw him in a wet sweater and worn sneakers, standing outside a hotel he owned because someone had decided he looked like he did not belong. Earlier that day, Marcus had sat in his office with Priya going over reports. Priya was sharp, calm, and almost impossible to surprise. She had worked with Marcus for 7 years and knew his habits better than most people. She knew he hated waste. She knew he read every complaint from customers himself. And she knew he had a strange habit of visiting his hotels without telling anyone he was coming. Crown Harbor is performing well financially, Priya had said, sliding a report across his desk. Occupancy is up, the restaurant is doing well, events are booked through next season. Marcus glanced at the report. And guest experience? Priya hesitated. Good overall. That means not good overall, she sighed. There have been a few complaints. What kind? Front desk issues, people saying staff were cold. A couple of guests said they felt dismissed. One guest said she was made to wait while people who arrived after her were helped first. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Were the complaints investigated? The general manager said they were handled. Marcus looked out the window. The city was gray that morning. Rain clouds were gathering in the distance. Handled how? Priya frowned. I don't know. Marcus tapped his finger lightly on the desk. Then his phone rang. It was Nia's school. Her after-school program had been canceled because a pipe burst in one of the classrooms. Parents were asked to pick up their children immediately. Marcus looked at Priya. I have to get Nia. Priya nodded. Bring her to the hotel. She likes the kitchen staff. She likes the dessert table. She gets that from you. Marcus smiled. I do not like dessert tables. Priya raised an eyebrow. You once made a 7-course tasting menu disappear during a board meeting. That was strategic eating. Of course it was. Marcus picked up Nia from school an hour later. She came running through the school gate wearing her yellow raincoat, her hair tied in 2 puff buns, her backpack bouncing behind her. Daddy! She shouted. Marcus opened his arms. There's my girl. She hugged him tightly. Are we going home? Not yet. I have one meeting at the hotel. Nia groaned dramatically. How long? Not too long. That means long. Marcus laughed. There will be snacks. Nia's expression changed immediately. What kind? Probably cookies. Then I forgive you. On the drive, rain began tapping against the windshield. Nia sat in the back seat drawing pictures in her notebook. Daddy, she said, what do rich people do in hotels? Marcus looked at her in the rearview mirror. Rich people? Like the people you meet in your meetings. They sleep, they eat, they complain about room temperature, same as everybody else. Nia giggled. Do poor people stay in hotels too? Sometimes. Do they get treated differently? Marcus glanced at her again. He knew she was only asking because she was curious, but the question landed differently after what had happened in his own life. They shouldn't, he said carefully. Nia nodded. Everybody should get treated nicely. Yes, Marcus said. Everybody should. When they arrived at Crown Harbor, the main entrance was crowded with black cars, photographers, and guests arriving for the charity event. Marcus decided to park in the side garage and enter through the east lobby. It was faster, it was quieter, and he did not want Nia standing in the rain while they waited for a valet. They entered through the side doors. The lobby was beautiful. Cream-colored marble floors, tall glass windows, a huge chandelier hanging from the ceiling, fresh flowers arranged in silver vases. Nia looked around in amazement. Daddy, this place looks like a palace. Marcus smiled. Your mother used to say the same thing. Did Mommy come here? She did, before it was ours. What did she think? She said it was beautiful, but too serious. Nia laughed. Too serious? She said every hotel should have more cookies in the lobby. That is a very smart idea. It was. Marcus's smile faded for just a second. He missed Elena every day, sometimes in obvious ways, sometimes in small ways, like seeing Nia laugh with the same tilt of her head, like finding an old hair clip in a drawer, like walking into a beautiful hotel lobby and remembering how Elena would have made fun of the expensive flower arrangement. Marcus cleared his throat gently. Come on, let's find the restroom. They walked toward the front desk. Liana Vale was standing behind it. Liana was 34, ambitious, polished, and proud of the fact that she had worked her way up from receptionist to assistant manager. She had spent the whole day preparing for the charity gala. Important people were attending. A local news crew was expected. The mayor's office had sent representatives. A number of wealthy donors were staying in the hotel. Liana wanted everything perfect. No confusion, no noise, no surprises. And when she saw Marcus walking toward the desk in wet jeans and a faded jacket, holding the hand of a little girl with a purple backpack, she made a decision before he even opened his mouth. Marcus smiled politely. Good afternoon. Liana gave him a brief nod. Can I help you? My daughter needs to use the restroom, please. Liana glanced at Nia, then back at Marcus. Are you a guest? We're here for a meeting. Which meeting? With Priya Shah. The name caught Liana's attention. Priya Shah? Yes. From Reed Harbor Hospitality? Yes. Liana looked at him again. There was no suit, no luggage, no event badge, no expensive watch, no obvious sign that he belonged there. Do you have a confirmation email? She asked. Marcus reached for his phone. The network was weak in the garage, and his messages were still loading. I have it here, but the signal is slow. Priya is expecting us upstairs. Naya shifted from one foot to the other. Daddy, she whispered, I really need to go. Marcus looked back at Liana. Could she please use the restroom first? Liana's expression tightened. The restrooms are for hotel guests and event attendees. Marcus blinked. She is 8 years old. I understand, sir, but we cannot allow just anyone to use hotel facilities. The sentence was calm, professional, but it hit Marcus like a slap. Just anyone? He asked. Liana gave a small, uncomfortable smile. I did not mean it like that. But you said it like that. A young front desk worker named Tyler stood beside Liana. He was 23 and had started the job 3 months earlier. He glanced at Nia. Maybe she can just use the staff. Tyler, Liana said firmly. Tyler stopped. Marcus noticed. Ma'am, Marcus said quietly, my daughter needs the restroom. It is raining outside. We are not asking for a room or a free meal. I am asking you to let a child use a bathroom. Liana crossed her arms. There is a public restroom across the street. Marcus looked through the large glass doors. Across the street was a closed cafe. The rain was getting heavier. There is nothing open across the street, he said. Liana's tone changed. Sir, I need you to stop arguing with me. I am not arguing. I am trying to help my daughter. Then you need to get off the premises. Naya looked over at Marcus. Daddy, did I do something wrong? Marcus's face changed. He looked down at her. No, sweetheart, you did nothing wrong. Liana picked up the phone under the desk. Security, she said. I need assistance at the East Lobby front desk. Marcus took a slow breath. He could have said who he was. He could have called Priya immediately. He could have made one phone call and ended the situation in seconds. But Nia was watching, and something inside him needed to know what would happen if he did not have power. What would happen if he was just another black father in a wet jacket, trying to help his child. Within a minute, Daniel Brooks from security arrived. Daniel was a large man in his 40s with kind eyes and a tired face. He had worked at the hotel for 9 years. He saw Marcus, he saw Nia, he saw the rainwater on the floor near the entrance. Immediately he knew this was not a dangerous situation. But Liana spoke before he could ask questions. This man has refused to leave, she said. Marcus looked at her. I have not refused to leave. I asked for a restroom for my daughter. Daniel looked down at Nia. She needs a bathroom? Yes, Marcus replied. Daniel looked at Liana. Can we let the child use the restroom while we figure this out? Liana's jaw tightened. Daniel, we have a major event upstairs. We cannot have people wandering through the hotel without verification. Marcus stared at her. Wandering? Liana looked away. Nia crossed her legs again. Daddy, she whispered, now clearly struggling. I can't wait much longer. Marcus's patience began to crack. He glanced at Daniel. Officer, please, you are a father, right? Daniel looked surprised. Yes. If your child needed a restroom, would you send them into the rain because of a rule that does not exist? Daniel did not answer. Liana sighed loudly. Daniel, escort them out. For a second, Daniel did not move. Then Liana lowered her voice and said something to him. Marcus could not hear the words, but he could see the effect. Daniel's shoulders stiffened. He looked ashamed. Then he looked at Marcus. Sir, he said quietly, I need you to come with me. Marcus nodded once. Fine. He bent down and picked up Nia's backpack. Come on, baby. As they turned toward the door, a young woman stepped away from the concierge desk. Her name was Maya. She had only been working at Crown Harbor for 3 weeks. Excuse me, Maya said. There is a restroom near the employee hallway. She can use that one. Liana turned sharply. Maya, go back to your station. But she's just a child. Maya. The lobby became quiet. Maya looked at Nia, then at Marcus, then down at the floor. I'm sorry, she said softly. Marcus gave her a small nod. He did not blame her. He knew what it felt like to be scared of losing a job. Daniel opened the side door. Cold air rushed into the lobby. Marcus and Nia stepped outside. The door closed behind them. For a few moments, they stood under the small awning beside the loading entrance. Rain hit the pavement in quick silver lines. Daniel stood near them uncomfortable. Sir, he said, I'm sorry. Marcus looked at him. You are following instructions. That doesn't make it right, Marcus nodded. No, it doesn't. Nia pulled at Marcus's sleeve. Daddy, I really need to go. Marcus looked around. The employee entrance was nearby, but it required a badge. Behind them was the parking garage, and there was nowhere else open. Then a voice came from behind them. Sir? They turned. It was Maya. She had slipped out through a staff door holding a key card. Her face was nervous but determined. Come with me, she whispered. Quickly. Marcus looked at Daniel. Daniel said nothing. He simply stepped aside. Maya led them through a narrow staff corridor behind the kitchen. The hall smelled of coffee, bread, and warm spices. Nia hurried beside Marcus, trying not to run. Maya opened a door at the end of the hall. There, she said, the employee restroom. Nia ran inside. Marcus stayed outside the door. He looked at Maya. Thank you. Maya shook her head. You shouldn't have had to thank me. Marcus studied her for a moment. What made you come out? Maya looked down at her hands. My little sister is 6. I kept thinking about her standing outside in that rain. Slowly, Marcus nodded. What is your name? Maya. Maya, you did the right thing. She gave a nervous smile. I might get fired. Marcus looked toward the lobby. Not today. Maya did not understand what he meant. A few minutes later, Nia came out looking relieved. Daddy, she said, the bathroom had a fancy soap. Marcus smiled. Fancy soap? It smelled like strawberries. That sounds serious? Nia nodded. Very serious. Then Liana appeared at the end of the corridor. Her face was red with anger. What are you doing back here? She demanded. Maya froze. Marcus stood between Liana and Nia. She used the restroom. I told you to leave the property. You told my daughter to leave the property while she needed a bathroom. You are not authorized to be in employee areas. Marcus's voice remained calm. And neither is she. She is 8. Liana looked at Maya. Go back to the front desk immediately. Maya started to move. Marcus stopped her gently. No, stay. Liana stared at him. Excuse me? Marcus took out his phone. The messages had finally loaded. He sent one message to Priya. Come to the East Service Corridor, bring Anthony too, now. Priya replied almost instantly. What happened? Marcus typed back. You need to see it yourself. Liana folded her arms. Are you calling someone to complain? Marcus looked at her. No. I'm calling someone who should know how they treat guests in this hotel. Liana gave a short laugh. Sir, I'm trying to run a professional establishment. Marcus glanced around the hallway. Professional? Yes. Professional means helping a child in distress. Professional means asking questions before making assumptions. Professional means knowing the difference between security and humiliation. Liana's expression hardened. You do not understand the pressure of managing a hotel like this. Marcus looked at her quietly. You are right. For the first time, his voice carried something different. Not anger, not shouting, just certainty. You have no idea how much I understand. 5 minutes later, Priya Shah came through the corridor door with Anthony Cole, the company's legal counsel. Priya was walking quickly. Then she saw Marcus standing in a wet sweater beside Nia. Her expression changed immediately. Marcus, she said, what happened? Nia looked up. Auntie Priya! Priya crouched and hugged her. Hi, sweetheart. Then she looked at Marcus again. Why are you back here? Marcus looked toward Liana. Because your assistant manager had security remove us from the lobby after refusing to let Nia use the restroom. Priya's face went still. What? Marcus nodded. She said the restroom was for paying guests. Anthony looked at Liana. Is that true? Liana's confidence disappeared. I did not know who he was. Marcus looked at her. And that is the problem. Priya stood slowly. Her voice was calm but cold. Liana, do you know who this man is? Liana swallowed. No. Priya looked at Marcus, then back at Liana. This is Marcus Reed, founder and owner of Reed Harbor Hospitality, owner of Crown Harbor Hotel. The hallway became completely silent. Maya covered her mouth. Daniel, who had quietly followed them through the service door, lowered his head. Liana stared at Marcus as if the floor had moved beneath her. Mr. Reed, she said faintly. I had no idea. Marcus nodded. That is obvious. I'm sorry. Are you sorry because I am the owner? Liana opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Marcus stepped closer, not threateningly, not loudly, but close enough that she had to look at him. My daughter should not have needed her father to own this hotel before she was allowed to use a restroom. Liana's eyes filled with tears. I was trying to protect the event. From what? She looked away. Marcus's voice became firmer. From a black man in wet clothes? From a little girl with a backpack? From someone you decided was not good enough to stand in your lobby? Liana looked down. Marcus took a breath. Do you know why I bought this hotel? She shook her head. My wife loved this building. Before she died, she used to walk past it and say that one day we should come here for dinner. She said it looked like a place where people could make beautiful memories. He paused. After she passed, I bought it because I wanted to create something that carried her name forward. Something warm, something human, something that made people feel welcome. Naya looked up at him. Mommy liked this hotel? Marcus looked down at her and smiled softly. She would have. She would have loved the cookies. Nia smiled. Then Marcus looked back at Liana. But today, this building made my daughter feel small, and I will not allow that to become normal here. Priya opened her folder. Liana Vale, you are being placed on immediate administrative leave pending an investigation. Liana's face crumpled. Please, I need this job. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, then he said, So do the people you made feel unwelcome? They needed dignity too. Priya turned to Daniel. Daniel, we will speak with you as part of the review. Daniel nodded. Yes, ma'am. Marcus looked at him. You knew this situation was wrong. Daniel's eyes filled with regret. Yes, sir. Why didn't you stop it? Daniel stared at the floor. I was afraid of going against management. Marcus nodded slowly. Fear makes people silent, but silence has consequences. Daniel looked up. I know. Marcus turned to Maya. What you did mattered. Maya shook her head. I just helped a child. That is exactly why it mattered. Within half an hour, the charity meeting upstairs had been delayed. Department heads were called into the harbor suite. The room was elegant, with a long walnut table, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a view of the rain-covered city. Marcus stood at the front of the room in the same damp sweater. He had not changed clothes. He had not asked anyone to bring him a suit. He wanted everyone to see him exactly as Liana had seen him. Not as the owner, not as the man in the magazine articles, not as the person whose name was printed on the company documents, just as a black father who had walked into a hotel with his child. Around the table sat the hotel's managers, the events director, the housekeeping supervisor, the restaurant manager, the front desk team, the human resources lead. Priya stood to Marcus's right. Anthony stood near the door. No one spoke. Marcus looked around the room. I was supposed to meet with investors today, he began. We were going to discuss revenue, expansion, new properties, and future plans. He paused. Those things can wait. No one moved. Today, my daughter was denied access to a restroom. I was treated as though I was a threat, not because I shouted, not because I harmed anyone, not because I refused to follow rules, but because someone decided who I was before she knew my name. The room remained silent. Marcus leaned forward slightly. I want to be clear about something. This is not only about one employee. Several people looked up. This is about every person who saw something wrong and chose comfort over courage. Tyler lowered his eyes. Daniel stood near the wall, his hands clasped in front of him. Marcus looked at Tyler. You wanted to say something at the front desk. Tyler's face turned red. Yes, sir. But you didn't. I was scared. Of what? Of losing my job. Marcus nodded. That fear is real. I understand it. But you need to understand something too. When people stay silent while someone is being treated unfairly, silence becomes part of the unfairness. Tyler swallowed hard. I'm sorry. Marcus looked at him. Do better next time. Then he turned to the human resources manager. Pull every guest complaint from the last year involving disrespect, discrimination, unfair treatment, or front desk conduct. Yes, sir. I want every complaint reviewed independently. She nodded. Marcus looked around the room again. From today, a child will never be denied access to a restroom in one of my hotels. Neither will an elderly person, a pregnant woman, someone with a disability, or anyone in distress. The room was still. From today, staff will no longer be judged by whether they obey orders blindly. They will be judged by whether they understand what is right. He looked at Priya. Create a confidential reporting system. Any employee who sees unfair treatment should be able to report it without fear of punishment. Priya nodded. Already started. Marcus looked toward the windows. Rain ran down the glass in long lines. When I was 19, he said, I was treated badly in a hotel kitchen by a man who thought my job made me less than him. Someone stood up for me that night. She did not know I would own hotels one day. She did not know I would become anything. He looked back at the staff. She helped me because it was the right thing to do. Then he pointed gently toward the lobby downstairs. That is the kind of place Crown Harbor will be, not a place that acts kind when the owner is watching. A place that is kind when no one important is watching. The investigation lasted 2 weeks. Marcus did not turn it into a public spectacle. He did not post angry messages online. He did not call the press. He did not use his daughter's painful experience for attention. Instead, he did the slower, harder work. Every employee attended in-person training about dignity, bias, guest care, and intervention. Not a short video that people could play in the background while answering emails. Real conversations, real examples, real accountability. Employees heard from former guests who had felt ignored because of their accent, their clothing, their race, their age, or their appearance. Staff members were asked to think about moments when they had judged someone too quickly. Some people were defensive at first. Some said they were just following procedures. Some said they had been under pressure. Marcus understood pressure. He understood policies. He understood that hotels needed safety rules. But he also understood something deeper. A rule that makes people forget compassion is not a rule worth protecting. Daniel was one of the first people to request a meeting with Marcus. They sat in Marcus's office late one evening. Daniel looked exhausted. I've been thinking about what happened every day, he said. Marcus nodded. What have you been thinking? Daniel looked at the floor. My son is 20. He's in college. I raised him to stand up for people. I always told him not to let fear make him weak. Marcus said nothing. And then I did exactly that, Daniel continued. I knew that little girl needed help. I knew you weren't dangerous. I knew what Liana was doing was wrong, but I stood there because I didn't want trouble. Marcus leaned back in his chair. What are you going to do differently? Daniel looked up. Speak before it becomes comfortable. Marcus nodded. Then you have learned something. Tyler also came to see Marcus. He looked nervous as he sat down. I wanted to help, Tyler said. I really did. But you didn't. No. Why? I thought if I spoke up, Liana would make my life difficult. I just started working here. I need this job. Marcus looked at him. Do you think Maya was not afraid? Tyler looked down. No. She was afraid too. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is deciding someone else's pain matters more than your comfort. Tyler nodded slowly. I understand. Good, Marcus said. Then show me. Maya was promoted 3 months later, not because she had saved the day, not because Marcus wanted to reward her with a dramatic gesture, but because she had shown something difficult to teach. Instinctive compassion. She became the hotel's new guest experience coordinator. Her first idea was simple. A small welcome desk near the entrance with water, umbrellas, directions, phone chargers, and a sign that read, "If you need help, please ask. You are welcome here." Marcus approved it immediately. The investigation into Liana revealed other complaints. Several guests said they had felt dismissed by her. One delivery driver said he had been made to wait outside during extreme heat because Liana did not want him in the lobby. An elderly woman said she had been repeatedly questioned when she came to meet her daughter for lunch. A young couple said they were watched closely by security after sitting in the lounge without ordering immediately. Liana was eventually dismissed from her role. Before she left, she asked for one final meeting with Marcus. Priya advised him not to go. Anthony said it was not necessary, but Marcus agreed. They met in a quiet conference room on the top floor. Liana looked different. She was not wearing her hotel uniform. She did not have perfect hair. She did not have a confident smile. She looked tired. I have been thinking about what happened, she said. Marcus nodded. So have I. I know I was wrong. Yes. I judged you before I knew anything about you. Yes. I told myself I was protecting the hotel. Marcus looked at her. And what do you think you were really protecting? Liana stared at the table for a long time. Finally, she answered, An image, a kind of guest I thought the hotel should be for. Marcus nodded. That is honest. Liana wiped her eyes. I am sorry for what I did to your daughter. Marcus's face softened slightly. I believe you are sorry. She looked up. But being sorry does not erase what happened, Marcus continued. Naya still stood in the rain thinking she had done something wrong. Liana's eyes filled with tears again. I know. Then let that change you, Marcus said. Not just your words, your choices. Liana nodded slowly. It will. Marcus hoped she meant it. He did not hate her. He did not enjoy seeing her lose her job, but he believed consequences mattered.